Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. This podcast is ran by two ladies who play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome back to the Wheel of Crime podcast. My name is Jenn.
And my name is Emily.
Happy New Year for you. We're pre-recording this because we need a little break for Christmas this year. But instead of leaving you high and dry for 4 weeks like we usually do, we thought we'd be nice and pre-record one episode for our first one back so that we can have an extra holiday and you can hopefully hear our voices against your will, maybe.
Well, with your will would be my hope. But yes, we've learned a little bit about how things happen typically when we take breaks, because sometimes the universe tries to make us take a longer break, and we're fighting the times here. We want to be able to provide you guys with content when we say we will, and yeah.
So not this year. We're getting better. We promise. For now,
it's a struggle, but we'll get there eventually. So since we are pre-recording this, Jen, how do you picture your New Year's is going to be like this year? Because for our new listeners, Jen's birthday is also on New Year's Day, so she usually has something fun planned.
Yeah, I decided this year, so here's my gripe, and I'm sure Emily can relate because her birthday is like on Thanksgiving usually.
Yeah, Canadian Thanksgiving, yeah.
Canadian Thanksgiving. As a holiday baby, like, it's just not the vibe. I feel like people just forget your birthday. And, like, the holiday overshadows your birthday. So, like, every year I invite a bunch of people to come up and, like, go for dinner and, like, do something fun. And, like, half the people can't come because they're doing, like, family stuff or they've got other plans. And it just, like, it's always kind of a bit of a bummer. You know? Mm-hmm. So I'm skipping that this year. I'm not going to be bummed out because Emily's coming up and that's really the only person I want there. So
that was my thing, because either way, we always celebrate your birthday and New Year's together. So I was like, well, whatever she's doing, I guess I'm doing that too. It doesn't matter when, why, how, or whatever.
Exactly. So I decided to do like a small birthday party the following weekend on like January 8th or whatever the Saturday is. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do a murder mystery party, which I'm really excited about.
I'm also excited about it. This has been something that's been like, I don't have like a literal bucket list, but I have like an in my brain bucket list. Mm-hmm. And the in my brain bucket list, it was thrilled at the idea when you were like, I think I want to do a murder mystery party for my birthday, because I love the idea of having like a character that you have to play and like trying to suss out things and having like a little bit of a mystery on our hands.
Yeah, and like everyone having to dress up, and like I want people to dress up and get into the character. That's my dream.
Well, I'll be anyways. I don't care that listen, I'm one of those people where there couldn't even be the requirement to dress up, and I would anyways. Like, I am so stoked. Like, I have an idea in my head already, like, depending on what character I end up getting assigned or whatever, like, what I'm going to dress up as. Like, I am very excited. I, like, looked at my closet. I was like, I've got sweater vests. I've got plaid. I've got dresses. I'm ready. I have a magnifying glass.
Yeah, my dream for you is you're the professor character, because I feel like you would rock that.
I would make a great professor. I even have like little wire-rimmed round glasses and like some other things that could make that work. I could either be sexy professor, because I have been told that like I'm just stern enough looking already that I can make that work. Or I do have an old lady wig, so I could be an actual old professor.
I love that for you. I love that you have options no matter what way it goes, and you're going to like... I envision you reading your character description and being like, okay, who am I? How old am I? Where do I live?
What's my history? How did I get here? Yeah.
Why am I at this party? What's my relationship to all these? Like, I just know Emily's fully getting into this character, which is why I love her. You know, like, she's going to go full ham for this, and I'm so pumped.
Which is so funny because whenever I talk about this with other people, they're always like, you're just so extra. And I'm like, excuse you, I'm here to have fun. Even if that's only me who's here to have fun, I will be having fun.
It's going to be great. I am a little afraid because I kind of, I went a little crazy. I invited a lot of people because, like I said, every birthday, like, half the people don't come because, you know, it's the holiday. But now I'm not having it on a holiday. And I kind of invited a lot of people. So if they all come, in theory, I do not have enough room in my apartment. So we will be renting an Airbnb as a plan B.
To be fair, though, because it's not like you're right, it's not on a holiday, but you're probably going to get some people the week of who end up getting sick because they were doing something on the holiday.
Yeah.
Or just can't come up because maybe they're out of country for the holiday and they couldn't get a flight back. Like, there's going to be stuff that happens where, like, some people aren't going to be able to show up, like, the week of.
Yeah, you're right. It happens. Like, I was like, there's no way anyone wouldn't come to, like, or would cancel last minute for my wedding. It happens. No matter what you think, there's going to be at least a couple people who are on your, like, confirmed list at the beginning of the week before your wedding that just won't come for various reasons.
And then there's people like my husband who the airline fuck up his flights and he was supposed to fly out after dinner and he instead had to fly out before dinner. He's still mad about that, by the way.
You know what? It is what it is. He stayed for the ceremony, which is more than most people would have done. So he gets a pass.
That's true. And also for our listeners, because I'm not sure if we touched on this on the podcast, for Jen's wedding, my husband took an hour and a half flight.
He's crazy.
There and back the same day.
He's legitimately
the same
crazy.
Day. Like, he's insane. And like, and he just came for the ceremony which wasn't really his intention. He'd originally planned to fly out after dinner, but obviously things didn't happen that way. But that includes like a time difference. Like, he had to find his way to the Airbnb on his own, which he's not a traveling man in the way that people travel nowadays. He likes driving places. So for him to even get on the plane and find his way anywhere without a car is amazing.
You know what my favorite part, and I don't think I even told you this, but my favorite part of that whole ordeal is when he was telling me when we were getting our pictures taken, because we did our pictures before the ceremony. So he was there for all that. And he's like, yeah, I got a taxi to the Airbnb and I got the guy's number and he's going to come pick me up later. And I'm like, you made personal connections.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, he told me that too. And I was like, are you like 80? Like, what? Why are you getting the taxi man's phone number? Why are you doing that? Because I asked him and I was like, do you want me to get you an Uber? And he's like, no, I got this.
He's like, yeah,
okay,
my
I
pal
guess he did.
George is coming to pick me up later.
Yeah, and then he, like, went and airdropped his location to the cab man, so he knew exactly where he was to come pick him up, and I was like, this is insane. I think you might be crazy.
I love that, though. Like, I just thought, when he told me that, I was like, that's, like, the cutest thing anyone's ever said to me, like.
It's such a him thing
so
to do,
funny.
though. Like, I love him to pieces, but, like, when he says that he's done this, I can't even be that surprised, because I'm like, this sounds like something you would do, yeah.
Yeah, like, it checks out, for sure.
He's an old man at heart, which is probably why him and I get along so well, because I get told by everybody, including you, all the time that I'm actually an old British lady on the inside, so.
It's true. But I think we should get straight into our episode, because I've got an exciting one to start off the new year.
I am excited. All right, let's spin our wheel then. Number 3.
Are you claustrophobic or afraid of, like, small spaces?
Actually, kinda. But not in the way that a lot of people think. So, I'm not scared of, like, being under my bed or in a closet or, like, in a box or whatever. Those things don't really scare me. I'm terrified of, like, being underground in a tight space.
Like in, like, a coffin, like, being buried alive?
Yeah, like, coffin, or, like, being trapped underground somehow. Like, my claustrophobia is, like, below earth
Cave.
claustrophobia. Yeah, like, stuff like that. Like, it's a tight space because you're literally underneath, like, a bajillion tons of dirt, like, as if you're ever going to get out of that on your own. And, like, anything to do with that kind of stuff, or even, like, if you're in a coffin, like, 6 feet under, locked in a wooden or whatever casket, like, that is so scary.
So did it bother you when this past summer we did the mine tour? Like, did that scare you?
It It was a little bit of an awakening thing for me, yeah. Like, there was a point in the tour where I, like, started to, like, hyperventilate a little bit, and I was like, I don't like being underground, I've decided.
Like, when they were talking about people getting trapped down there, you were like, I'm so fucking scared right now.
No, it was the part where we, like, walked up to, like, it wasn't even that far into the mine yet when I started to panic. They, like, walked us up to those stupid wooden poles they had that were, like, balanced on pallets that they filled with rocks. And they were like, oh, yeah, this is how we secure the mine. And I was like, that is some redneck bullshit that you're showing me right now. That is wooden pallets and tree trunks. And that's holding this bitch up. I gotta leave. Like, this is too much for me.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's fair.
I was like, I'm never going to make it out of here. I was a little anxious. I'm not going to lie.
I'm definitely a little claustrophobic. Like, not so much where I'm like, oh, I'm scared of being in, like, a small room. But, like, it's, like, I don't know, just, like, with certain things. Like, I can get claustrophobic from, like, a turtleneck being too tight, you know? And then I, like, start to panic, and I'm, like, sweating so much, and I'm like, I want to throw up from how this is making me feel.
Like, you're being strangled on a very minor level by something that's wool and itchy anyways.
Yeah.
I think that's called overstimulation. I'm not sure about claustrophobia, though.
Well, whatever it's called.
I get it, though. I have the same thing, which is why, even though there's lots of clothing pieces for women that are very cute that I want to own.
Yeah.
I'm just not the kind of person who can own and wear a tight turtleneck.
I know, and I want to be.
Yeah, right? Or, like, anything that's, like, tight and made out of wool. Not for me.
Oof.
Or, like, anything itchy, like lace or anything. And I love how some of these things look. Like, there's some really nice wool things that I've seen that I want to own, like dresses or whatever. It's not for me. It's for somebody else.
Yeah, I very much prioritize comfort in my clothes. And that's just how it has to be, because
Same.
It just, I can't do it.
Well, I will not leave my house if I'm wearing something that I already want to take off. Like, that's just not going to happen.
I know. I can't suffer. I'm too much of a baby.
I have suffered for fashion enough. The last thing on my list was wearing high heels, and after your wedding this year, I don't think I'm going to wear high heels ever again for the rest of my life.
That's valid. Literally in the photos, she had them off after the 15-minute ceremonies. So.
Listen, you're not even telling them why. Jenn got married in, like, a bird dome, and there was, like, these brick cobblestone pavement instead of normal concrete pavement, and I was wearing stiletto shoes, and my stupid little pointy heel got stuck between some stones, and the best man, who's like John's best friend, was trying to hold me up and drag me along while my shoe is stuck in the ground. So I had to take them off, otherwise I was never going to make it. I was literally holding up the procession, and we had people behind us, and they're like, what's wrong? What are you doing?
Genuinely don't know why Emily wore stilettos. That was her choice. I told them they could wear whatever shoes they wanted, and she picked that one out all on her own.
They were very cute. And I had in my brain this one idea where apparently you can buy plastic covers for stilettos, where if you're going to an outdoor wedding, you're not going to sink into the dirt. You put them on the stiletto and it widens the base, but they're clear so they don't show up in photos. And I didn't buy them because I forgot.
Well, the thought was there, so...
I tried being prepared. It didn't work.
All right.
We should spin for our next question.
Yeah, let's spin. We've gone off on a tangent again.
Number 1.
This is a spicy question to start off the new year.
Spicy? Whoa.
Have you ever been attracted to a family member?
Attracted?
Yeah.
Like in the boning way?
Yeah.
No. Never.
You're not
even
a cousin
once.
fucker?
No. I have family members who are, and not that close to me, and they fuck each other. But I, for one, am not attracted to family members.
I can safely say that I am also not attracted to any of my family members, and never have been, and never will be.
Pretty much, yeah. I think that that's just really gross. Well, here's my thing. I'm not even attracted to people that I'm not related to that I consider members of my family. You know what I mean? Like a family friend.
Like
that's not somebody
pseudo
I'm attracted
family
to either. Yeah, it's like that's too close for me. I'm like, nah, that's incestuous somehow, even though we're literally not related. You know what I mean?
I completely understand your train of thought and 100% agree.
Right? Well, and it's weird too because like I know that like say like if we're taking it a step further into like what people are into as far as like porn stuff goes, apparently step siblings is like one of the most searched things on any porn website and has been for like years and years and years.
I know.
Like I get that people are into like the taboo of it. I guess step siblings is like removed anyways because I guess you're not related, but however you want to
still
validate
weird.
that, but
it's just
still weird.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To anyone who is a
me.
cousin fucker, I apologize for my disgust, but I just can't help it.
See, this is like what we say. We try not to yuck anybody else's yums, assuming that they're safe and consensual. In this situation, I'm going to yuck you, and I'm going to yuck you hard because there are so many people in the world you could pick, and you pick someone you're related to, that's on you, bestie.
Like, it's one thing if you didn't know. Like, somehow you're distantly related and you just genuinely didn't know.
Or estranged from a family member or a side of the family or something.
Yeah, and then you find out later and you've kind of already established this. I feel like that would be a very difficult situation. One that I never hope to experience. I mean, I'm pretty safe now that I'm married to husband number one.
Who's very, very much not related to you. And I am also safe because I am also married to husband number one who... We've actually both taken DNA tests. I know for fact that we're not related.
Love that for you. Yeah, so I'm fine right now. I'll worry if I'm ever onto husband number two, okay?
See, but here's the thing though, because I've like read enough stories from from people who they've had something similar happen to them or they know somebody who has. If you were in the situation where you were not married to husband number one and you ended up dating somebody that you found out was a member of your family, like a cousin or uncle, estranged parent or whatever, would you stay with them? Me personally, even if I thought somebody was the love of my life, if I found out I was related to them, that would be it for me. Like I would not be able to look at them the same way.
I feel like it'd be very hard, and I feel like it would also really depend on like, you know, like if you found out that like that's your long lost brother.
Yeah.
If you find out that they're like your third cousin, you know.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I think it depends on the situation, and it would be very difficult, especially if you're like already established together. Like me and my husband, like we've been together for 10 years. Now we're married. Like we don't have any kids, but if you did, like it would be messy.
Yeah, it would be messy for sure. You're right. I guess there are different like things that kind of tie into it and whatever. But for me, I still think the perspective would definitely change for me. Like, yeah, I guess like distant
and you've
cousins,
already fucked
that's
them,
maybe one
so
thing.
What's the difference?
You can't. Yeah, at that point, you can't unwrite the past. So it's like, do you just? I don't know what you do. that's really hard. Yeah. All right. Well, let's spin for our next question.
Okay, great.
Number 4.
Have you ever really regretted doing something to a family member? So that could be like something mean that you did to like your younger sibling and you're like, like this has always kind of stood out to me. I regret doing this thing.
Yes, but probably not in the way that people are thinking. So I was just talking about this with my sister the other day. I feel bad about a few different situations that happened growing up because, and I guess this isn't even really entirely my fault. I mean, kind of. But, you know how people have fight or flight instincts when they get scared?
Yeah.
Mine's fight. And I'm not somebody who's like, I don't have anger problems. Like, I'm not combative in real life. But for whatever reason, whenever I get really scared, I fight. I literally swing on people.
She's throwing hands.
And it is not good. And there's been a couple times growing up where, like, obviously you're siblings, right? So, like, scaring each other is kind of funny. There's, for each one of them had a situation where they scared me because they're like, oh, nobody scares Emily, I'm going to get her. And then they find out why nobody scares me because I swing on them.
Emily's throwing punches the moment they go bah, behind the corner.
No, literally, like there's a weird moment in my brain where it's almost like my lizard brain kicks on or whatever it is, and I'm like, ah! And then, yeah, like I swing on them, like punch, kick, slap, whatever comes out first, like I am making contact. And there's been a couple times where they're like, why did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know.
Why
like,
did you do that? That's the better question.
It's just upsetting for everybody. And so now they all have to warn other people, like people that they're with, that they're friends with, or whatever. Like if it comes up in conversation where they're like, oh, you know, be really funny, like you should try this prank on Emily. And they like, warn people, and they're like, no. Like if it's anybody else, sure, Emily will fight you. And they're like, oh yeah, haha, like she can take me. And they're like, no, like her instinct is to fight. She will swing on you. You don't want that.
For your own safety, please refrain from scaring her.
Pretty much, yeah. So, I mean, at least it's nice because nobody scares me. But it's out of fear. It's not out of respect.
Incredible. Love that for you.
So I do feel bad about that, but I also know in my heart of hearts, that I don't think I could have done anything to change that, because that wasn't me. That was my lizard brain.
You know what? Fair. See, I regret nothing. My siblings were mean to me, and I was mean back.
You know, I kind of half expected you to say that, but hearing you say it was even better than what I pictured. You just be like, you know what? I regret nothing.
This year is a year of growth, but I stand by that.
But I will
nothing.
not suffer.
Get fucked, siblings.
That's really funny. How many questions do we have? 1 or 2 left?
1 more left.
All right, well, let's spin the wheel then.
Okay.
All right, give it to me. What's the question?
After we graduated high school, did you have a strong desire to like move out of your house or move to a new city or anything of that nature? I did, personally.
I would say, I know you did. You got out of there as fast as you physically could. For me, not so much cities, because at that point, I wanted to have a plan. Like, for me, when I got out of school, my big thing was that I was good to do anything. I just wanted to have a plan. And I didn't feel like I was in a good position to have a good plan. But I knew that I wanted to move out of my house at some point. But I ended up eventually getting kind of, like, pushed out of my house, I guess. I don't know if I ever told you this. So I was paying rent at my parents' house when I was living there just because, you know, that makes sense. But it started being a thing where I wasn't allowed to have my parking spot anymore. Like other things, I had to buy my own food. Yeah, so then I couldn't afford to pay the rent that I was paying. And then also I wasn't allowed to park at the house. I had to buy my own food. So I was like, yeah, I don't really feel welcome here anymore. So then I left.
That's sad.
I think it was just a sign of the times thing. And then also I'm the oldest of 6, so I don't really think that was like a fleshed out experience for anybody at that point.
That's fair. Yeah. I don't know. I had such a strong desire from like a young age to like, my whimsicalness was like, I'm going to move. Once I graduate, I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to live my dream as like some sort of
I loved that for you.
Actress or writer or something. Like, I didn't really know.
Jenn would talk about this all the time. Like, it's not even surprising that like she took off when she did, because you've always had like the wandering spirit. Like, I don't think you were ever going to be happy just like staying where you were.
I think I just felt so uncontent like where we were. Like, I'm the youngest of 3, and both my older sister and older brother had done like a lot of traveling and like, you know, lived their life because they were like in their 20s when I was in like middle school and high school. So I just was like kind of jealous of like them getting to go and do all these things that I couldn't do because I was literally just too young. Like, I couldn't
too young, didn't have the money, couldn't drive. Yeah,
exactly. Like, and because they were quite a bit older than me, and so I think I just like had such a strong desire. I was like, as soon as I can, I want to like get out there and like live and travel and do these things, because like I'd just been watching them do it for so long.
I wonder what a psychologist would say about your
trust me, we're working on it.
Discontent was. You're like,
I already
the
see
therapist
one.
Has ideas, right?
She's dissecting
I do get
it.
that though. get that though, like if you feel like you're really stuck in a place, like, you know, just waiting for the day when you can break free.
And I think also just like I found our hometown very suffocating. Like I just felt
I was
like
gonna say it is a little claustrophobic, funny enough, talking about claustrophobia and stifling and, you know, all those types of things. Like where we come from is not really a good place for growth anyways though.
yeah, like I don't know, I just feel like whenever like in high school, middle school, whatever, I was always constantly like looking around at people my own age, at people older than me, and I was like, no one here is doing what I want to do in life. Like no one here is living, like I'm not jealous of anyone here. I'm jealous of people who are not here and who are doing other things. Like I don't know, I feel like, I don't know if you have this, but like I feel like in movies especially, you'd always see like the younger person who would like look up to that one cool aunt. And no offense to any of my aunts, because they're all great people, but I didn't have that. I didn't look at anyone and be like, wow, you're so cool, your life is awesome, like this is who I want to be when I grow up.
You feel like you didn't have any like role models that you could actually relate to.
Yeah, in our hometown. Like I was like, everyone who I look up to is living in New York City. They're living in Paris. They're living in these big, giant cities doing these amazing things. And I just wanted that so badly.
Mm-hmm. I could see that though, yeah. It makes sense when you think about it where it's like, oh, okay, like if you're not surrounded by anybody who's doing what you want to do, then why would you want to stay there?
Exactly. And I feel bad because like, I don't know. I feel like as an almost 30-year-old now, you like look back and it's hard because I definitely live closer to our hometown than I did when I went to college, and me and my husband are like, I've always been like talking about like moving further away again, and it is really hard because, you know, like I want to see my family and like you and everyone, but yeah, it's like this weird thing where I'm like, I feel very stuck here.
Well, it's kind of like you're already in the middle though of like between what you want to do and what you can do and all these different things and what you're doing right now, and it is hard. I think that's a part of like the process of growing up though, is kind of finding yourself and what you want to do and where you want to be and all that other stuff.
Yeah, being a grown ass person is a fucking hard, I'll tell you that much.
It's a lot of work. Which
is
is why I like to stay at home and protect my peace, and that's all I do.
That's why Emily moved to the country and has never looked back since.
Pretty much. I know, I love people when people are like, oh, you must be so lonely out there, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, people don't bother me for anything. Like,
it's great.
It's fucking great. I wake up, you can't hear cars. Like, this is fabulous.
I could never, but I love that for you.
It was one of those things where I didn't really expect it to be something that I enjoyed, but I actually really do like being surrounded by nature. I think that's the thing. I like being able to like see the routines of the birds, or like the squirrel that lives in my tree, or, you know, we have like a couple of like specific chickadees that like to come and eat my bird feeder, and I know it's the same too because they always pull out the same seeds that they don't like and then spray them all over the ground. Like, it's stuff like that. I complain, but I do really like it.
Yeah, see, I got some fat black squirrels that live around me. Like, the squirrels in Calgary are giant and mean looking. Like, I don't know if you've seen them, but they're ugly.
See, they are mean looking, but I still kind of want to pick them up and see if I can make a new friend.
No, they look like they've been on the streets.
You're like, those ones fight you on purpose, Emily.
Yeah.
They don't have fight or flight. It's just fight.
You don't want to pick those ones up. They're not cute.
Fine. But I'm guessing your story today is a cousin fucker who's jealous of people who aren't fucking their cousins and kills a lot of people.
You're wrong. But I think you're going to be horrified to find out in which ways you're wrong.
Oh, God. Okay.
So.
Yay? Question mark? Okay.
Today, I'm going to tell you about Josef Fritzl, who was born on April 9th, 1935 in Amstetten, Austria, to Josef Fritzl Sr. and Maria Fritzl. He grew up as an only child raised solely by his working mother. His father was a severe alcoholic, had deserted the family when Joseph was 4, and never again came into contact with him. Josef's dad later fought as a soldier during World War II and was killed in action in 1944. His dad's name appears on a memorial plaque in his hometown. So, reflecting on his childhood, Josef initially described his mother as, quote, the best woman in the world and as strict as it was necessary. However, later in life, he expressed a negative opinion of his mother and claimed that she used to beat me, hit me until I was lying in a pool of blood on the floor. It left me feeling totally humiliated and weak. My mother was a servant and she used to work hard all her life. I never had a kiss from her. I was never cuddled, although I wanted it. I wanted her to be good to me. He also claimed that she had called him, quote, a Satan, a criminal, a no-good, and that he had a horrible fear of her. So, not a great start when your mom calls you Satan.
Yeah. That's definitely a bad start. I don't think that's setting up for anything good, at least.
Absolutely not. In a later report by forensic psychiatrist Adelheid Kastner, Josef's mother is described as unpredictable and abusive. Josef referred to himself as a alibi child, meaning that his mother only gave birth to prove that she was not barren and could produce children. Josef claims that his pathological behavior is innate. In 1956, at the age of 21, Josef married 17-year-old Rose Marie. In 1959, Josef and his wife bought a house together, and Josef's mom decided to move in with them. Over time, their roles reversed, and his mother came to fear him. Eventually, he also admitted that he had later locked his mother in the attic and bricked up her window after telling the neighbors that she had died, and kept her locked up until her death in 1980.
That's psychotic. Instead of having her, leave, he was like, no, I'm gonna brick you in the attic and tell everybody you're dead? What?
For 20 years.
For 20 years?
For 20 years.
So she's
From,
just, chilling
1960
up there with
to
no
1980.
sunlight as everybody thinks she's dead?
Yeah, and she's fucking up there.
What's Rose doing?
Nothing. She apparently didn't know.
Well, yeah, okay. As if, yeah, my mom died and disappeared. There's no funeral. Yeah, we're not going to visit her tombstone. There isn't one. Also, don't go in the attic and ignore all the noises you hear. And also, I bricked up the window. Come on.
It's questionable. It's very questionable.
Questionable?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So, after completing his education at HTL Technological College with a qualification in electrical engineering, Josef obtained a job at a steel company in Linz. From 1969 until 1971, he held a job in a construction material firm in Amstetten. Josef later became a technical equipment salesman, traveling throughout Austria. He retired from active employment when he turned 60 in 1995, but continued some commercial activities. In addition to his apartment building in Amstetten, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm doing my best. Josef rented out several other properties. In 1972, he purchased a guest house and an adjacent campsite at Lake Mondsee. He ran it together with his wife until 1996. In 1967, Josef broke into the Linz home of a 24-year-old nurse while her husband was away and raped her while holding a knife to her throat, threatening to kill her if she screamed.
Yeah, I've already gathered that this guy's got some, at the very least, psychological problems.
He's definitely got lots of problems.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, it literally only gets worse from here.
I was going to say, because I don't know the story, I think, but that last name is super familiar, because I know that there's a couple of video games that are like horror video games that say they're based off the Fritzl case, and I'm like, is this it?
Yeah, what inspired me to tell this story is you know those random movie clips on TikTok where it's 2 minutes and then it's 900 parts?
Yeah.
So I saw one of the parts and then I just went and watched the full movie instead of watching it in 900 parts. But
That's fair, yeah.
the movie was based on this case. And I was like, that was fucking crazy.
All right.
So, according to an annual report for 1967 and a press release of the same year, he was also named as a suspect in a case of attempted rape of a 21-year-old and was known for indecent exposure. Josef was arrested and served 12 months of an 18-month prison sentence. So, Josef and Rosemarie had 3 sons and 4 daughters together, including Elizabeth, who was born on April 6, 1966. Josef reportedly began sexually abusing Elizabeth in 1977, when she was only 11.
Gross. I was going to say, though, from, like, his past victims, it seems like he has a weird thing about young girls specifically. Not sure.
Yep.
It has to be a power thing or something because of his weird relationship with his mom, but I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know. But, yeah, that's sick.
Yep. After completing compulsory education at 15, Elizabeth started a course to become a waitress. In January 1983, she ran away from home and went into hiding in Vienna with a friend from work. She was found by police within 3 weeks and returned to her parents in Amstetten. She rejoined her waitress course, finished it in mid-1984, and was offered a job in nearby Linz. Josef had began planning what was effectively a dungeon for years, receiving official permission to contract his cellar complex as far back as the late 1970s. It was not difficult to get officials to approve underground constructions. It was at the height of the Cold War, and this was, after all, Lower Austria, which during those tense and heady days in world affairs found itself the frontier with the Soviet Union. Nuclear bunkers were seen as an even more normal and necessary addition to an Austrian home than a conservatory or a kitchen extension might have been viewed in Britain. The local council had even given him a grant of a couple £1,000 towards the building costs. Neighbors had observed with some intrigue as the electrical engineer hired a digger which sat in his garden for months. They watched as he tossed tons of earth from beneath the house and shifted it in a wheelbarrow to make way for the rooms he planned to build. A precise planner, he had thought of every last detail, securing concrete and steel supplies through contracts at construction companies where he had previously worked. There were initially 2 access points, a heavy hinged door, and a metal door reinforced with concrete operable via a remote control device. A total of 8 doors had to be opened before reaching the purpose-built cellar. The concealed cellar had a 16-foot long corridor, a storage area, and 3 small open cells, connected by narrow passageways, and a basic cooking area and bathroom facilities, followed by 2 sleeping areas, which were equipped with 2 beds each. It covered an area of approximately 590 square feet, and the cell had 2 access points. The hinge door, which weighed 1,100 pounds, which is thought to have become unusable over the years because of its weight, and a metal door reinforced with concrete on steel rails that weighed 660 pounds and measured 3.3 feet high and 2 feet wide. So not a very inviting place to be.
No. It does sound like a typical bunker style, though. It sounds huge, though. And you have to get through 8 doors before you can even get to this place?
Yeah.
Crazy.
So
but yeah, no, that's huge, though. It literally sounds like a second house.
Well, it's only 590 square feet, so that's pretty small.
Well, like, still, though, like, compared to, like, when you already have a house on top, though, like...
Yeah, I feel like it's small for what he ends up using it for.
Which I'm pretty sure I already know what this is going to be turning into.
Yeah. It was located behind a shelf in Joseph's basement workshop, protected by an electronic code entered using a remote control unit. In order to reach the store, 5 locking basement doors had to be crossed. And... so 8 doors in total needed to be unlocked, of which 2 doors were additionally secured by electronic locking devices. So he made this place very hard to get to. On August 28th, 1984, after Elizabeth had turned 18, Joseph lured her into the basement of the family home, saying that he needed help carrying a door. In reality, Joseph had been converting his basement into a makeshift prison chamber, and the door was the last thing he needed to seal it. After Elizabeth held the door in place while Joseph fitted it to the frame, he held an ether-soaked towel on her face until she was unconscious. Then he threw her into the chamber, and after Elizabeth's disappearance, Rosemary filed a missing persons report. Almost a month later, Joseph handed over a letter to police, the first of several that he had forced Elizabeth to write while she was in captivity. The letter, postmarked Briannu, stated that she was tired of living with her family and was staying with a friend. She warned her parents not to look for her or she would leave the country. Joseph told the police that she had most likely joined a cult. During his earlier prison stint for the rape of the nurse, he later admitted that he had planned to lock his daughter up so that he could contain and express his evil side. He said, quote, "I was born to rape, and I held myself back for a relatively long time. I could have behaved a lot worse than locking up my daughter."
I don't even know what to say to that.
Over the next 24 years, the horror for Elizabeth was unrelenting. The cold, the damp, the rats, which she was sometimes forced to catch with her bare hands, the water that ran off the walls in such large quantities that she had to use towels to soak it up. Summer, when the place turned into an intolerable sweaty sauna, was the worst time of year, she would later write in a calendar. Joseph went to the hidden chamber almost every day, or a minimum of 3 times a week, bringing her food and other supplies and repeatedly raping her. At first, Joseph strapped her arms and then tied them up behind her back with an iron chain, which he then secured to metal posts behind her bed. She could only move approximately half a meter on either side of the bed. After 2 days, he gave her more freedom of movement by attaching the chain around her waist, and it was on the 2nd day of imprisonment that he started raping her. Then, about 6 to 9 months into her imprisonment, he removed the metal chain because, quote, "it was hindering his sexual activity with his daughter," according to the indictment. He sexually abused and raped her several times a day. Over the course of nearly a quarter of a century, he would rape her at least 3,000 times. Elizabeth gave birth to 7 children during her captivity.
More than her own siblings. Wow, okay.
Yep, and now you can see why it's a small area.
Well, yeah, for 7 people.
8.
Or, yeah, 8 people. Okay, but how monstrous do you have to be to rationalize in your brain that it's better for you to do this to your own daughter who loves and trusts you than to strangers? To me, that sounds like he was worried about getting caught, is what that sounds like to me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he was in prison for rape of a stranger, and he's like, well, I should be smarter.
I can't rape strangers anymore. It needs to be somebody I know.
Yeah, it's got to be someone who literally can't tell on me.
Yeah. Gross.
Elizabeth spent the first 5 years entirely alone, and Joseph hardly ever spoke to her. Then the babies started to come. They were a horror for her, but they also provided her with the longed-for company and a purpose to live after years in which she had contemplated suicide. The births took place over 12 years, and all took place without any medical help. To prepare for them, her father provided her with disinfectant, a dirty pair of scissors, and a 1960s book on childbirth. And she did them all alone.
To me, it sounds like he does not give a shit if she lives or dies. Like, I'm thinking in my head that he picked her because she was, like, the oldest, but that wouldn't have stopped him from potentially replacing her if she did kill herself.
I feel like he picked her because she had run away before, and he's like, oh, perfect. This is a great alibi.
An easy scapegoat.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing, too. Like, she just finished her schooling, so he's like, if I don't do this now, then she's gonna leave home anyways.
Exactly.
So sick.
So, one of her children died shortly after birth, and 3 of her kids, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, were removed from the chamber as infants to live with Joseph and his wife upstairs. In accordance with Austrian law at the time, Joseph's criminal record was expunged after 15 years. As a result, more than 25 years later, when he applied to adopt and/or foster Elizabeth's children, the local service or social service authorities did not discover his criminal history. Therefore, Joseph and Rosemarie were approved by local social services authorities as their foster parents. Officials said that Joseph very plausibly explained how all 3 of his infant grandchildren had appeared on his doorstep. The family received regular visits from social workers who saw and heard nothing to arouse their suspicion. So basically, he would take these kids from her after she gave birth, put them on his doorstep with a note he forced her to write, and was like, I am not coming home, but I also can't take care of this kid, so here you go, Mom and Dad.
Like, what is the point? Like, what, so he sees infants and he's like, oh, I have to take care of them, but not his own literal daughter? Like, what is the goal here?
Well, so he took 3, and she kept 3 downstairs because I think the reason was because there wasn't literally enough room for all of them to stay down there, so he just started taking them.
And he wanted so he probably wanted the control then, and he's like, well, I don't want them to go to an adoption agency because they're mine, so they're going to have to stay here.
Yeah.
Sick. Also, like, he's married. He has a wife. Like, what is even the point of any of this?
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, you have somebody who literally married you that you can be with, but it has to, It has to be unconsensual? Like, this is so gross.
It's disgusting. So, following the 4th child's birth in 1994, Joseph agreed that the basement was too small for all of them and agreed on an expansion to the space. The basement where Joseph kept Elizabeth and her kids, so it started out as 380 square feet, and then they eventually expanded it to 590 square feet. So, it was way smaller to start.
I think I'm a little confused on this layout. Is it a basement under a basement, or is it just a basement? Or is it a basement at all?
So it's a basement. So basically in the basement, there's like a bookshelf, which is a fake wall that goes into the secret bunker, where she's kept.
Okay, cool. That's what I had in my head, but I'm like, okay, how is this even like, because yeah, you'd have to dig for that, like you said in the beginning. He's making it bigger while they're in there.
So, to cover up all the dirt Elizabeth and her kids dug up in the process of this expansion, Joseph built a swimming pool upstairs, and that's how he was able to cover it up. And he literally made Elizabeth and her kids do the digging with their bare hands for years.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, I know that with crimes like this in general, there's always something wrong and people do heinous things all the time. I just can't fathom the why part of this.
Yeah, it's just insane. Like,
it's like so unnecessarily cruel. Like, you're making the job harder, and it's in turn making it harder for you because you're not able to do things as fast. As for what? Is it a punishment?
It must be. It seemed like he genuinely just disliked Elizabeth from the beginning. Like,
that's what it seems like to me, because it's like in part punishment. He doesn't view her as being human. He doesn't view her as being his daughter. Like, it's just there's something missing that I'm not like, that doesn't make sense in my brain.
I don't know if it can make sense. Like, I think it's just like cruelty beyond belief. So, like I said, he used the pool as like a cover up. So later when his other kids and Elizabeth's kids were splashing in the pool, they did so above Elizabeth's prison.
That's so horrifying. But like, also, how are the kids, like the grandkids that were adopted, not saying mommy's in the basement? Like, how is that not even happening? Because kids say shit all the time.
Because they were literally like born and then taken out. So they wouldn't know.
Oh, they weren't even raised in there?
No. They were like, literally, he just took 3 of them out like the moment they were born and to put them on his doorstep.
Okay.
So The captives had a television, a radio, and a video cassette player. Food could be stored in a refrigerator and cooked or heated on hot plates. Elizabeth taught the children to read and write, and at times Joseph would punish the family by shutting off their lights or refusing to deliver food for days at a time. Joseph told Elizabeth and the 3 children who remained, which were named Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, that they would be gassed if they tried to escape. Investigators later concluded that this was an empty threat to frighten the victims. There was no gas supply to the basement. He also told them that they would be electrocuted if they tried to meddle with the cellar door. So, really instilling that fear so that they won't even try to escape. According to Joseph's sister-in-law, Christine, he went into the basement every morning at 9 a.m. to draw plans for machines which he sold to manufacturing firms. He often stayed there for the night and did not allow his wife to bring him coffee. A tenant who rented a ground floor room in the house for 12 years claimed to hear noises from the basement, which Joseph said were caused by faulty pipes or the gas heating system. Which is crazy that, like, his wife and other kids didn't say shit.
I was literally about to say that. I was like, so some random person who rents a room there can hear noises in the basement, but nobody else can? Uh-huh. Okay.
On April 19th, 2008, Joseph agreed to seek medical attention after Kirsten, Elizabeth's eldest daughter, fell unconscious. Elizabeth helped Joseph carry Kirsten out of the chamber and saw the outside world for the first time in 24 years. He forced her to return to the chamber, where she remained for the final week. Kirsten was taken by ambulance to a local hospital and was admitted in serious condition with life-threatening kidney failure. Joseph later arrived at the hospital claiming to have found a note written by Kirsten's mother. He discussed Kirsten's condition and the note with a doctor, Albert Reiter. Medical staff found aspects of Joseph's story very puzzling and alerted the police on April 21st. The police broadcast an appeal on public media for the missing mother to come forward and provide information about Kirsten's medical history. The police reopened the case file on Elizabeth's disappearance. Joseph repeated his story about Elizabeth being in a cult and presented what he claimed was the, quote, most recent letter from her dated January 2008, posted from the town of Kematten. The police contacted Manfred Wolfhart, a church officer and expert on cults, who raised doubts about existence of the group Joseph described. He noted that Elizabeth's letters seemed dictated and oddly written. Elizabeth pleaded with Joseph to be taken to the hospital. On April 26th, he released her from her cellar along with her sons Stefan and Felix, bringing them upstairs. He and Elizabeth went to the hospital where Kirsten was being treated on the 26th of April. Following a tip-off from Dr. Reiter that Joseph and Elizabeth were at the hospital, the police detained them on the hospital grounds and took them to the police station for questioning. Elizabeth did not provide the police with more details until they promised her that she would never have to see her father again. Over the next 2 hours, she told her story of 24 years in captivity. Elizabeth recounted that her dad, Joseph, raped her and forced her to watch pornographic videos, which he made her reenact with him in front of her children in order to humiliate her.
So yeah, it's a control thing. Like, his whole thing is that he gets off on feeling like he has complete control over somebody else.
Yep. Shortly after midnight, police officers completed the investigation. 73-year-old Joseph was arrested on the 26th on suspicion of serious crimes against family members. During the night of April 27th, Elizabeth, her children, and her mother, Rosemarie, were taken into care. Police said that Joseph told investigators how to enter the basement chamber through a small hidden door opened by a secret keyless entry code. Rosemarie had been unaware of what was happening to Elizabeth. On April 29th, it was announced that DNA evidence confirmed Joseph as the biological father of his daughter's children. His defense lawyer, Rudolph Mayer, said that although the DNA test proved incest, evidence was still needed for the allegations of rape and enslavement. On May 1st, the Austrian police held a press conference that said Joseph had forced Elizabeth to write a letter the previous years, indicating that he may have been planning to release her and the children. The letter said that she wanted to come home, but it's not possible yet. Police believe Josef was planning to pretend to have rescued his daughter from her fictitious cult. Police spokesman Franz Pulser said police planned to interview at least 100 people who had lived as tenants in Josef's apartment building in the last 24 years. On November 12, 1986, at 6:40 a.m., 17-year-old Martina Claudia Porsche left her home to get to a nearby bus stop. When she did not show up for an agreed meeting with her boyfriend around 5 p.m., her boyfriend called Martina's mother, who thought her daughter was already with him. She later learned that Martina had not showed up for work that day, and authorities were also able to determine through witness statements that she had not been on the bus earlier that morning. On November 22nd, 1986, 2 scuba divers found Martina's body wrapped in 2 olive green tarps on the southern shore of Lake Mondsee. The forensic examination revealed that she had been killed by strangulation 2 hours after leaving her parents' home. After his arrest, Josef was investigated for possible involvement, since at the time of the murder, he and his wife ran a guest house which was located on the opposite where Martina was found, and she was also very physically similar to his daughter Elizabeth.
Sick.
In addition to Martina's homicide, Josef was looked into as a suspect in the death of 17-year-old Anna Neumayer, who was killed with a captive bolt pistol in a field in Linz on August 17, 1966. When she had disappeared on her way to Wells, which was 35 kilometers from where Josef worked at the time, another potential victim was 20-year-old Gabrielle Superkova, a prostitute who was murdered in August 2007. Her body was found at the Lipno Reservoir near the Austrian-Czech border at the time when Josef was on a holiday there. However, Josef was ultimately not charged with these murders due to lack of evidence. So, after his arrest, Josef claimed that his behavior toward his daughter did not constitute rape, but was consensual. Which...
yeah, okay.
Yeah. In extracts from talks with his lawyer, Josef said that, quote, "I always knew during the whole 24 years that what I was doing was not right, that I must have been crazy to do such a thing, yet it became a normal occurrence to lead a second life in the basement of my house." Regarding his treatment of the family he had with his wife, Josef stated, "I am not the beast the media make me out to be." Regarding his treatment of Elizabeth and her children in the cellar, he explained that he brought flowers for Elizabeth and books and toys for the children into the bunker, as he called it, and often watched videos with the children and ate meals with Elizabeth and the children. Josef decided to imprison Elizabeth after she did, quote, "did not adhere to any rules anymore" when she became a teenager. And he said, quote, "This is why I had to do something. I had to create a place where I could keep Elizabeth, by force if necessary, away from the outside world." What a good dad. Dad of the year.
You know what's so sick about this too? His description of his desire to punish her for acting out or whatever that was, that's called growing up. That's called your children are getting old enough to the point where they feel confident enough to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And he viewed that as such a personal slight that he had to punish her by locking her in the basement and assaulting her and producing another family with her as punishment for her growing up. That's crazy.
Here's my thing. Maybe she was rebelling against your rules because you were already sexually assaulting her from the age of 11. Maybe she just didn't respect you.
Well, that's the thing, too. He's, like, acting as if this came out of nowhere, and it's like, no, you've been an asshole the whole time. And then he's like, oh, well, perfect family or whatever upstairs. Like, I'm not this monster or whatever. Well, clearly you are this monster if you already were having these idolizations and you're choosing your victims who look like your daughter, and then you imprison your daughter and have a family with your daughter. This is all very intentional. Like, this is all super intentional.
And disgusting. Like, just genuinely
like, super
so
sick.
Disgusting.
And then he's sitting there and he's like, oh, it couldn't be helped. Yeah, it could have been helped. It's called you keep your filthy, perverted hands to yourself and go and get a lobotomy is what you do.
And get your dick chopped off as well.
Yeah. Like, needle in the brain. dick chopped off, and that's it. You're good forever, and you can't bother anybody else.
Exactly. So he suggested that the emphasis on discipline in the Nazi era during which he grew up until the age of 10 might have influenced his views about decency and good behavior. The chief editors
You're telling me he's blaming World War II for his actions? That's crazy.
He's like, Nazis.
Here's the thing. World War II happened to everybody.
Yeah.
And not everybody's imprisoning their daughters in the basement. You cannot sit there and be like, World War II made me do it. Are you kidding me?
I'm like, sir, come on. Be so for real right now.
Like, I have to laugh, otherwise I'm going to cry. Like, he is so off his rocker.
The chief editors of News magazine noted in an editorial that they expected Joseph's statement to form the basis of defense strategy for his lawyer. Critics and his statement may have been a ploy to prepare an insanity defense. A forensic psychiatrist diagnosed Joseph as having a severe combined personality disorder, which included borderline schizotypial and schizoid types, and a sexual disorder, and recommended that Joseph receive psychiatric care for the rest of his life. Later reports have revealed that Joseph's premeditated plan to lock up his daughter was not for discipline but for his own gratification. In accordance with the agreement that she would never have to see her father again, Elizabeth gave videotaped testimony before Austrian prosecutors and investigators on July 11, 2008. On November 13, 2008, authorities in Austria released an indictment against Joseph. He stood for trial for the murder of the infant Michael, who died shortly after birth, and faced between 10 years to life imprisonment. He was also charged with rape, incest, kidnapping, false imprisonment, and slavery, which carried a maximum 20-year term. Joseph's trial commenced on March 16, 2009, presided over by Judge Andrea Hummer. Joseph pled guilty to all charges with the exception of murder and grievous assault by threatening to gas his captives if they disobeyed him. One of the children, a twin called Michael, died shortly after his birth in the cellar in 1996. He had severe breathing difficulties and died in his mother's arms when he was just 66 hours old. Joseph admitted that he subsequently burned the baby's body in an incinerator, but until his admission during the trial, always denied that he was responsible for murder through negligence. He said, quote, "I don't know why I didn't help. I just overlooked it. I thought the little one would survive."
Also translates to, I don't give a shit about what happens to who in the basement because I am a monster is what that translates to.
Yeah, that's my basement family. I don't give a fuck about them.
Pretty much. Like, that is what he's saying. And the other thing, too, which I think is so... Here's the thing. He was 74 when this happened. And they were saying, like, oh, he was planning on, somehow doing this play where his daughter comes back or whatever. I don't know if that was it. I think with this whole hospital thing, he knew there was a chance that he was going to get caught, but he was already old enough where he's like, oh, well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because when you're, 75 almost, and most people live to be 100, he's like, oh, whatever, I do, 10 years in prison, I'll be dead by then. That's what he was thinking.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe he was also did the letter with Elizabeth to dangle oh, maybe I'll let you out if you do these things.
Yeah, because it's a manipulation thing. It's like I said earlier, not obviously saying any of this is fact, because who am I to say anything? But to me, it screams the need to control, getting off on having control over somebody else or influence over somebody else. Clearly some other stuff in there, he's been eyeballing his daughter since she was at the very least 11, if not before that. And also to the point where he's seeking strangers who look like his own daughter to harm. But there is another level to this.
Yeah. It makes me sick.
It genuinely makes me want to throw up. And I'm mad.
Yeah. In his opening remarks, Rudolf Mayer, the defending counsel, appealed to the jury to be objective and not swayed by emotions. He insisted Joseph was not a monster, stating that Joseph had brought Christmas tree down to his captives in the cellar during the holiday season. What a great dad. Wow.
Wow.
His
There's no
captives
chimney in the
got a Christmas tree.
basement because you're literally in prison, but here's a Christmas tree? Are you kidding me?
Christina Burkheiser, the chief prosecutor, pressed for life imprisonment in an institution for the criminally insane. She demonstrated for jurors how the low height of the ceiling in the cellar dungeon by making a mark on the door to the courtroom at 5 feet 8.5 inches, and described the cellar as damp and moldy, passing around a box of musty objects taken from the cellar, the odor of which made the jurors flinch. On the first day of testimony, jurors watched 11 hours of testimony recorded by Elizabeth in sessions with police and psychologists in July 2008. The tape is said to have been so harrowing that 8 jurors did not watch more than 2 hours at a time. 4 replacement jurors were on standby to replace any of the regular jurors in case they could not bear to hear any more of the evidence. Besides the video testimony, Elizabeth's older brother, Harold, testified and said that he was physically abused by Joseph as a child. Joseph's wife, Rosemarie, and Elizabeth's children refused to testify.
That, to me, again, says that he's got everybody so scared of him that nobody even wants to talk about the terrible things he's done. And also, how can you sit there and feel justified in your actions when, like, having somebody tell your story is making multiple jurors ill to the point that they cannot continue watching?
That's the part that's crazy to me. Like, oh.
Like, how can you not look at your own actions while you're doing them and see the sickness in them, and it takes a room full of people to be like, oh, maybe that was kind of bad.
But he brought our Christmas tree, so it's all okay, right?
If he even did that is the thing. Like, one person saying, oh, well, I brought them a Christmas tree down, but...
Did you?
You know? Like, but did you? Like, what? Like, where's the evidence of that? Oh, sorry, it's because you kept your basement family a secret so you could torture them. And so we actually don't have evidence of anything other than these horrible living conditions.
On March 18th, 2009, Elizabeth attended the second day of the criminal trial against her father in preparation for a book she wrote about her ordeal. She did not plan to see her father again. Joseph's attorney, Rudolph Mayer, confirmed that she had been in the visitors' gallery in disguise at the time of her video testimony was aired. Josef Fritzl recognized that Elizabeth was in the court, and from this point on, you could see Joseph going pale, and he broke down, Mayer said. It was a meeting of eyes that changed his mind. The next day, Joseph began the proceedings by approaching the judge and changing his pleas to guilty on all charges. So he's having a crisis of conscience, I guess, finally.
I don't even believe that. Like, I doubt that seeing the eyes of the person that you've been abusing for years changes you so much in that moment that you claim guilty on everything. If anything, he saw that she was physically there in purpose on top of the testimony that she was making. He's like, oh, I'm kind of fucked, aren't I?
Yeah, you're probably right. On March 19th, 2009, Joseph was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 15 years. He said that he accepted the sentence and would not appeal. Joseph is currently serving out his sentence in Garston Abbey, a former monastery in Upper Austria that has been converted into a prison. Judge Hummer stated medical experts reported Elizabeth and her children were in relatively good health after being taken into care. Elizabeth and all 6 of her surviving children and her mother were all housed in a local clinic where they were shielded from the outside environment and received medical and psychological treatment. Members of the Fritzl family were offered new identities, but it was emphasized that it was their choice to make. Berthold Kripplinger, head of the clinic where Elizabeth and her children were being treated, said that Elizabeth and the 3 children held captive in the cellar required further therapy to help them adjust to the light after years in semi-darkness. They also needed treatment to help them cope with all the extra space now that they had to move about. In May 2008, a handmade poster created by Elizabeth, her children, and her mother at the therapy facility was displayed at the Amstetten Town Center. The message thanked local people for the support. It said, quote, "We, the whole family, would like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for sympathy at our fate. Your compassion is helping us greatly overcome these difficult times, and it shows us that there are also good and honest people here who really care for us. We hope that there will soon be a time where we can find our way back into a normal life." Kirsten was reunited with her family on June 8th, 2008, when she was awakened from her artificially induced coma. Doctors said that she would make a full recovery. It was revealed that Elizabeth and her children were more traumatized than previously thought. During captivity, Kirsten tore out her hair in clumps and was reported to have shredded her dresses before stuffing them in the toilet. Stefan could not walk properly because of his height, 5'8", which had forced him to stoop in the 5'6" cellar. He had also been revealed that normal everyday occurrences such as dimming of lights or the closing of doors plunged Kristen and Stefan into anxiety and panic attacks. The other 3 of Elizabeth's children who were raised by their father are being treated for anger and resentment at the events. In late July 2008, it emerged that Elizabeth ordered for her mother, Rosemarie, out of the villa they had been sharing in a secret location set up for them by a psychiatric clinic. Elizabeth was upset about Rosemarie's passiveness during her upbringing, which I feel like it would be so hard not to blame your mom for all this.
Yeah, and just like now that you've gotten to the end of the story, I'm certain I've definitely seen a video that those like people who do makeup and also talk about crimes. Yeah. I saw one where somebody was talking about the reason why she kicked her mom out of the villa, because I guess it was this big thing at the time. And apparently the mom had said something along the lines of, well, if you had acted better, this wouldn't have happened to you. Like, basically blaming her daughter for what had happened, among, like, a couple other things, which was, like, one of the reasons why she was like, no, you can't be here anymore. As well as, like, the negligence and, like, yeah, like you said, passiveness of growing up. And I know that this person who, I'm not sure where they got their research from, so who knows, but she also said that there was generally just a lot of anger also at the mom for either not noticing or not caring enough to notice that something was wrong.
Yeah, and like probably, I feel like the mom probably ignored red flags that could have gotten Elizabeth and her kids out sooner. Whether she like just chose to ignore them. It makes
you wonder though too.
Or if she was also being...
That was my thing. I was like, I would not be that surprised if the reason that so many other people who were involved in the situation didn't want to speak because they were also being abused.
It's very possible, and I'm going to go ahead and
say... for her, she might have been like, I don't know what he's doing, but whatever it is isn't hurting me anymore, so I don't care. Because that is, like, something that happens to people who suffer from abuse for long periods of time. Like, they're just happy to have a break, which totally makes sense. So maybe she even feels guilt at, like, not realizing that the reason she was getting a break from certain types of abuse was for another reason.
That's so horrible to think about.
There's nothing good about this. It's all horrendous.
So lawyer Christoph Herbst, who represents Elizabeth and her family, said, "Fortunately, everything is going very well. They spend their time answering hundreds of letters from all over the world. Felix, Kirsten, and Stefan, brought up in the underground with their mother, have learned to swim. All of Elizabeth's children attended a 4-day summer camp organized by firefighters with 4,000 other young campers in August 2008. The children, along with their mother, have also made day trips, including swimming outings on which care was taken to keep them out of reach of the paparazzi and to protect their privacy." In March 2009, Elizabeth and her children were forced to move out of the family's hideaway home and return to the psychiatric clinic where medical staff had started trying to heal the family and unite the upstairs and downstairs siblings during their previous years. Elizabeth was reported to be distraught and close to a breakdown after a British paparazzi had burst into her kitchen and started taking photographs. After the trial, Elizabeth and her 6 children were moved into an unnamed village in northern Austria where they were living in a fortress-like house. All of the children require ongoing therapy. Factors that traumatize the upstairs children include learning that Josef had lied to them about their mother abandoning them, the abuse they had received from him during their childhood, and finding out that their siblings had been imprisoned in the cellar. The downstairs children received therapy due to their deprivation from normal development, the lack of fresh air and sunshine while living in a confined basement, and the abuse that they and their mother had received from Josef when he came to the basement. All of the children have genetic problems common to children born of incestuous relationships. Elizabeth was said to be estranged from her mother, Rosemary, who accepted Joseph's story about Elizabeth joining a cult and did not pursue the matter further. But Elizabeth allows her 3 children who grew up in Joseph and Rosemary's house to visit their grandmother regularly. Rosemary lives alone in a small apartment. In an article in March 2010, The Independent stated that Elizabeth and her children recovered remarkably well given the difficult lives they endured for so long. According to Joseph's sister-in-law, Christine, Elizabeth enjoys spending her time shopping, taking frequent showers, and driving. She has passed her driving test without difficulty. Her relationship with Thomas Wagner, one of her bodyguards, who is 23 years younger than Elizabeth, was reported to be ongoing, with him becoming a big brother figure to the children. All of Elizabeth's children have developed normal sibling relationships with each other, and after trouble dealing with the traumatic events, the 3 upstairs children slowly began recognizing Elizabeth as their mother. The children began to enjoy the outdoors, playing video games, and spending time with their mom and grandma. Despite their strained relationship, Elizabeth and her mother started visiting each other more, and Elizabeth has reportedly forgiven her mother for believing her father's story. On June 28, 2013, workers began filling in the basement of the Fritzl home with concrete. Estate liquidator Walter Azenbach stated that the construction would cost £100,000 or 100,000 euros and would take a week to complete. The house was to be sold on the open market. While most neighbors approved of the proposal, some preferred that the property be demolished due to its terrible history, and asylum seekers were offered the house to live in. The house was sold for 160,000 euros in December of 2016, with the buyers voicing their intention to convert the building into apartments.
I was gonna say, personally, I'm on the side of the neighbors that want to just like mowed the place to the ground. Like seeing that house and knowing what even happened in it. Like, I get it was the basement and they filled it in or whatever, but it's like it's still there. Like, all you did was fill it in.
I know, and I, as an apartment person, I would not want to live in an apartment converted from that house.
Like, not saying it would be haunted, but like bad vibes for sure. Like, I would be so scared.
Terrible vibes. And the fact that he incinerated one of her kids there, like...
yeah, a baby there? Like, yeah. No, there's so many things about this whole thing where I'd be like, no, I would want to distance myself. If I were the neighbors, I would literally move to another place. Like, I would not want to be associated anywhere within 100 feet of that place.
Mm-mm. In May 2017, Josef changed his last name from Fritzl to Meyerhoff, probably due to getting into a prison fight that resulted in several of his teeth getting knocked out after other inmates set up a fake dating profile with his name and picture. Mark Perry, a British journalist who interviewed Josef in his cell, says that he has shown no remorse for his crimes. He recalls he kept saying, "Just look into the cellars of other people. You might find other families and their girls down there." Which is just sick that he thinks that he's just like, yeah, this is normal. Everyone does it.
That tells me so much, though, about, like, his perspective on what he did. Like, he genuinely is thinking, like, oh, there's other monsters like me out there who just haven't been caught yet. Which he's probably right. Like, there are people who do heinous things all the time. But to the degree that he did and what he did, absolutely fucking not. Are you kidding me?
I know. In April 2019, it was reported that Josef's health was declining and he did not want to live anymore. In September 2021, a decision was made to release Josef from a psychiatric detention facility into a regular prison where he was to continue to serve his life sentence. The decision was based on psychiatric report, which said he no longer posed any danger. The ruling was appealed, and late April 2022, a panel of 3 judges decided that Josef could be removed. The decision was based on a supplementary psychiatric report submitted in March. However, a court ruled that he will remain in psychiatric facility until an appeal to the higher regional court in Vienna is heard. There are reports that he is suffering with dementia, and he moved. The move to a regular prison means that Josef, who received a life sentence, will be eligible for parole in 2023, having served the initial 15 years of his sentence. And that's my tale.
So far, there's nothing I like about that. But I honestly gotta say, it makes you wonder, if you're somebody who does something heinous like this for so much of your life, what happens when you get dementia? Do you still think that your daughter's in the basement and you just say shit? Like, what? But like, how does that even work?
I don't know. I feel like it depends, because I think like there's different circumstances. Like, you know, like I think some people do revert back to like a certain point in their life, or, you know, so like it's hard to say what point he might have like feel like
Gone
he's
back
in.
to, yeah. I don't know, man. Like, this is one of those things where I understand why the death penalty is something that we should frown upon for the most part, and why it mostly is around the world. But then, like, this kind of stuff where somebody's so unabashedly unhinged and unwell and, like, evil to this point. Like,
But
not only is he a danger to himself, but to other people.
I don't know, but I'm a firm believer that like this man does not deserve to die. Like, he deserves to sit in fucking prison and be imprisoned the way he did to his daughter. You know?
That's what I mean, though. But, like, here's the thing, though. Regular jail is still too good for him. Like, I want somebody to go in there and beat him up every morning and every night, every day, until he eventually dies. That's what I actually want.
I think they should put him back in the moldy basement that he kept his daughter in, personally.
Yeah. Like, literally. Like, why not? See, it's called karmic punishment, like, when you want something to happen back. And I truthfully think that's probably the better way to do it. It's like, you did these heinous things. Like, you should know what that felt like.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. This man is absolutely fucking revolting. And I honestly just hope the best for Elizabeth and her kids, and like good on the medical staff like that took in Kristen originally for like
that saw something was wrong, yeah.
realizing like this kid has no vaccinations, no medical history whatsoever. Like, this is weird and wrong.
Well, you gotta think too, like, those medical staff might have been thinking that they were like people from the hills. Like, I really doubt they thought the situation was as bad as it actually was.
Yeah, but like the fact that they thought something might have been wrong, so they said, it's like very weird to me, because this story kind of weirdly parallels the story I did right before all of our Christmas episodes, where like the medical staff in that one did everything wrong, and the medical staff in this one did everything right.
Well, that's why it's so hard to say that, like, there's such a, you know, a consistency on things that we need to do across the board for all these different places. Because there are some people who are really good at doing what they do, and they can key in on when something's actually wrong and do something about it. And then you have people on the other end who abuse that to their own means. Like, it's hard to find balance. But like you said, I really hope that, you know, her and her kids and their futures are all significantly better than what they've already received, because that I would not wish that even on my worst enemy, let alone a member of my family. You know what I mean?
The only person I wish that on is Joseph.
Yeah, that would be the one and only person. But yeah, I feel like I could talk about this forever, honestly. I've been talking about it as you've been doing your story, but I don't know, man. Like, definitely...
It's just so horrendous. Like, when I was looking into this, I was just like, it just keeps fucking getting worse. Like...
And, like, it makes you feel sick, because then it's like, there's just so many things where it's like, clearly he was unhinged in a kind of way that's, like, really, really bad. Like, it just culminates, right? It's like, okay, so he was abused by his mom, but that absolutely just does not justify his behavior towards all these other people in his life. Like, there's just something
and locking
so
her up for
cruel
20 years
about his behavior. But that's the thing. It's like, people, not to say that this is like, you know, excusing any behavior, but there are people who are abused by their parents or other members in their life all the time. Unfortunately, this is something that happens. But they do not use that as, like, a reason for them to be even crueler or even worse, or at least they shouldn't.
Yeah, like, Jesus. I have no words. It's just all awful. Genuinely. Everything about this story is awful. From, like, beginning to end. Like, it starts bad and it just keeps getting worse. And that's all I have to say.
I was going to say, I definitely need a break. I'm going to go pour myself a glass of wine, eat a pizza, and pretend like I do not know what you just told me.
Yeah.
In a really fun way.
Same.
But yeah, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave us a review. We always appreciate that. And then we also have our website, which is www.wheelofcrime.com if you want to check us out on there. We have our Patreon, which is Wheel of Crime at Patreon. We have our social media, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at TikTok. I know I've been saying Twitter, X, Twitter, whatever. I'm going to keep saying Twitter.
You know what we mean, right?
Yeah, we know. You guys know what's up. And then we have wheelofcrime@gmail.com if you want to send us an email just with a story of your own or a comment. Or we also take critical evaluations. If any of you get tired of our intro music or something else we do, we love to hear it.
You've done it before, and we listened. We changed our music.
We will do whatever you all want. We are yours.
We're a democracy on this podcast. You outvoted us.
We also seek to grow and change, and you all outvote us considerably, considering there's only 2 of us. And then, lastly, if you have a listener story you want to submit, just something creepy happening to you, we also take crime-related stories, even unusual circumstances, aliens. Just make sure to write in a story on our Google form. It's up on our social media, and you might be added to our next listener stories episode.
Yeah, I think we might do one for Valentine's Day this year, so get your stories in.
Here is your notice then. If you have, say, a romantic story that might be criminal, paranormal, alien related, whatever you have, it kind of strange, a little bit funny maybe, write it in and you might get shared on the show.
Exactly. And that's it. That's all. We'll see you next week for another new episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.